Hello, my name is Javi Rodriguez, and this is my capstone presentation. And this will be going over the viability of the objectives that were given to us by Dr. Dolly Suggs for their property and whether or not they are feasible for future management. This is for Capstone 4101. So a quick introduction. The property in question is owned by Dr. Dolly Suggs, and they've given us 8 objectives, and they want to know the feasibility of these objectives on the property for future management. And a quick background of the property, it is 414 acres in total, with 246 of these acres being forested area, which, if you follow my mouse here, is this entire area on the inside, with some wetlands being located in this back area, with these 2 larger areas on the outside being consisting of pastures with minimal trees and lots of grasses. So the first objective is sustainable forestry on the property. This is a viable objective. Dr. Suggs wants the land to remain essentially wild while we are doing management options and harvesting from the property. And so each of these management options will mimic a natural disturbance. And because there are already many different age classes of trees, which old and young and everything in between, different kinds of trees, all spaced out along the property, this will allow for variable retention harvest and uneven stand management. So this will allow for allowing trees to go old and taking chunks of trees at a time instead of completely clear cutting or leaving it all unmanaged. So this will allow for the most natural way to harvest while minimizing human disturbance on the property, while still being able to manage properly. So the second objective is conservation easements. This is a viable objective. The property itself is located in the Mississippi alluvial plain. There are lots of wetlands in the back half of this property, which are an important habitat for waterfowl, amphibians, fish, things of that nature. And these also provide resources for helping things such as helping to mitigate flooding, and they aid environmental health. And while allowing conservation to happen on the property, which will be good for the nature aspect, Dr. Suggs can be compensated financially for allowing these easements to be placed on their land, which would help both her and the nature and the natural aspect of the property. So objective 3 is trophy deer hunting, excuse me. This has unfortunately never been a viable option. There are lots of deer on the property. We have evidence of lots of deer as seen below. We have we have lots of trail camera footage. We have evidence of tracks, rubs, and deer browse. However, we found lots of evidence of does on the property. And even with some large tracks, there's no evidence of trophy deer. Even looking back at records on the property, there hasn't been a trophy deer here since the 1930s. And even then, that may be a fabricated incident because the area is too small and there's not enough resources to provide for trophy deer. Objective 4 is the conservation of a species on the property. This is a viable objective. A species that could be considered would be the prothonotary warbler, which we have heard in our trips out into the field. It is a very good indicator of bottomland hardwood health, as it is a species that you find here that exists in a very specific habitat. So if you find it here, it means that there's good habitat health happening. And this conserving this species would be very important as an indicator to show that there is habitat health. Promoting ecological indicators for the 5th objective. So this is another viable objective. So we have 2 different species here. We have the swamp rabbit, which we have evidence of on the property through trail cameras, and scat, which is seen in the photo to our right. This is another species that is a good indicator of bottomland hardwood health. It is needs a very specific environment to live. So if you find it here, it means that there's good health for this type of environment. Same thing for amphibians on the property. They are all over the property. We've caught and heard them all over the property. They are also very good indicators of riparian health, which is river, creek, or pond system surrounded by vegetation. So as we see here, we have a Cope's gray tree frog on the top left, a green tree frog next to that, and below that we have a bronze frog, and then to their right we have a trail camera photo of a swamp rabbit. So there's lots of different types of these indicators here. The 6th objective would be restoring the American chestnut. This is not a viable option at all. Based on the soil types we found on the property, the American chestnut would not survive. It needs a very specific environment, and this is not possible on the property. When the management plan is written, an alternative species will be listed. Objective 7 is other hunting opportunities on the property. This is a viable objective. Through our sessions out on the property, we found evidence of feral hogs, the rooting and tracks. Unfortunately, we never got trail camera footage, but we do know they're here based on the destruction of the area. Hunting them would provide a great source of food for Dr. Suggs and their family, as well as helping to remove a problematic invasive species. They compete with the native species here, they destroy the environment, and they've spread disease. So taking them out of the ecosystem would provide a great hunting opportunity, both for food and ecosystem health and competition. So the eighth objective is sale of red oak. And this is not as viable as an option due to there is red oak on the property. However, there's very few and far between, and very few merchantable species in general. There's lots of non-profitable species such as water oak that are found all over the property. However, there is another species, green ash, that is a valuable species and is found more commonly on the property, which could be sold in tandem with red oak or sold by itself, depending on what Dr. Suggs wants to do with that information. An additional recommendation for their property, would be to trim the grass in the walking corridors. So Dr. Suggs has stated that they do not like snakes, and trimming the grass in these walking areas would limit the amount of interactions they've had, as well as being able to increase ease of travel around the property and recreational opportunities, as there are specific walking corridors on the property. However, they are very hard to get through because the grass is very overgrown. In conclusion, Dr. Suggs has set out some mostly reasonable objectives that will lead to good management actions being taken based on what they want. With ones that are not as viable, alternatives will be stated in the complete management plan. But as of right now, these will lead to very straightforward suggestions on how to manage the property going forward. Thank you.